Grace from NFP Connect, and we are connecting communities with one of my favourite people, Ali Kimmorley, who's one of the directors of People Fusion. Hey, Ali.
Hey, Grace. It's nice to see you looking relaxed in your backyard.
I know. Well, I try really hard with this beautiful backdrop that I have going on here.
Very good.
So, how are you going?
Yeah, look, going well. Of course, it's a challenging time, but, typically I do look for silver linings and I'm finding some. So I'll be pleased to have a chat with you today about those, as well as, reality of what's going on in business and in the recruitment world.
So tell us, how has COVID impacted your organisation?
Yeah, look, it's impacted in a few different ways. So we're not seeing the volume of permanent recruitment activity that we typically would see. So on that front, yes, there definitely are still positions coming into the market, but we're also finding that it's more of a temp market at the moment, where companies are looking to fulfill a place more on a temporary measure, so they're not sort of over-promising, I guess, on the permanent side. And we're also noticing a greater need for our career transitioning and outplacement services off the back of companies that have already made some decisions to make some roles redundant. And the other sorts of things that we're noticing is helping our clients with part recruitment services rather than the whole end-to-end. So they are getting hundreds of applications on any role that's getting advertised. So we're helping them with part recruitment services and also helping our temps transition to working from home. So helping them get set up and be able to still function as effectively for their host employers from home.
What do you, it must be, is it really confronting in your position? You must see a lot of stuff going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a very emotional time. And as many people will have heard through their own networks, husbands and wives, multiple people in families all being stood down or losing their jobs at the same time. So, being able to be as practical and supportive as we can, even when it is a time, even for our own business, that there's uncertainty too. But really clicking into gear and going, okay, well, what is it that we can do to help make a difference to this person's life today? And whether that be through giving them a few tips or helping them with their resume, helping them just take a few actions that make them feel like every day they're getting a step closer to, hopefully finding some work.
Yeah. So what have you learned, or what are you learning through this?
Yeah, gee, that's a good question, Grace. I'd have to say that for me, COVID-19 has been a real equaliser in the community. And what I mean by that is I've sort of been banging on for a long time about wishing that more people would show their vulnerability. And I feel like COVID has actually helped that along. And that's both business and personal. I think for a long time we've all sort of put on these brave, bravado of everything's wonderful and business is always great, but the reality is it isn't always. So I just feel like COVID has been a bit of an equaliser, where people are willing to take off their shields and bear and go, I'm struggling, I need some advice and help. Can we talk about that?
So, yeah, it's true, and it's such a refreshing. It's kind of like we needed it, which is what you're saying.
Yeah. Because I think if we could show that vulnerability more often, we'd actually all get further ahead, because people would genuinely support each other because they want to. I think it's fair to say that most of the population want to help other people. So to me, COVID has been an opportunity of showing how we can help each other.
Yeah, that's really good. So what kind of services or resources or programs have you found that have helped?
Yeah, look, I'll admit I've been reading a lot more than what I have in a very long time. In a pretty, busy role, I tend to park a lot of reading material and go, oh, I'll look at that later. Well, I've stopped, I've read, I've looked, I've taken messages away. our governing body, like our association, has been excellent. So the RCSA have been providing brilliant resource material. And I've commended them on that, because I think often those membership associations can be hearing the bad news stories or the complaints, and they've been on the front foot. But the other, which I think is so important in our business community, is what Sal and I call our friends in business. You know, we've all been checking in on each other. We come from different walks of life, from, you know, accounting to legal to HR to hospitality to business services, you know, you name it. We've all been going through different things at different times in the last month, you know, both emotionally and business impact. So what we've really noticed from our friends in business, because we've all been checking in on each other so much, we've really noticed that there's been different days of the week and different weeks that we've been able to actually provide advice to each other.
So good. And I think part of that whole vulnerability side is that being able to support each other, because I think that is when you are so isolated, and we're talking about doing these, is when you are so isolated, you can forget that you've got other people around you. Like, you know, I'm out here with my parents, I'm in the middle of nowhere, that I don't really have, you know, and so kind of this is my little, how do I connect with everyone again? Like,
Yeah.
I would normally do, you know, at a networking event. And so I think that having people that have your back, that you feel are supported, you've got that kind of cover. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's one thing that I think, you know, from my exposure to NFP Connect that you've done really well is it is about people sharing ideas and sharing experiences and what worked and what didn't work. And, you know, and you've built that great foundation. So, you know, now it's an opportunity for people to now build on that even more. And I think outside of, you know, NFP Connect, it's great that a lot of us are doing that same sort of, you know, framework of supporting each other through these times.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned, and this is kind of separate, and I think throughout this process of NFP Connect and going and bringing different groups together, is it's the individual that wants to support each other. Like, so there's the corporate that might, you know, oh no, we can't have that. And so you sit sort of with that in behind you. But as an individual, you're like, well, I'll show up and I'll be able to tell you what I can tell you, but there'll be stuff that I can't tell you, and it's okay. And we're all on the same front. And so that's always been a really interesting thing, I think I've discovered with bringing those people together in different formats, is we'll say what we need to say, but we all do, as you said, want to help each other. And I think people do want to like work together.
Yeah, most certainly. And you know, reality is we all want to be there on the other side, as they keep saying. So, you know, whatever that takes, and it won't all be easy decisions, and it hasn't been easy decisions, you know, that companies have had to make to take away people's livelihood and whatnot. But you know, reality is that if we can all help each other through that, then the rest will end up coming and improving. We just need to make sure that we're all there on the other side to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you found is the hardest thing from working from home? You have a fabulous home, I know, but the worst, like, I would love to be stuck in your home.
Oh, well, this is my week 3. The first week I was horrendous.
You're quite social. So
I'm very social. Yeah. So on the work front, as in productivity, the first week I was all over the shop. I finished the week feeling like, what did I actually achieve? And I feel like I've done bits and pieces of everything. And I had this light bulb moment that I didn't use my diary whatsoever. So I'd used it for the odd, you know, like I knew I had a Zoom interview, or I knew I had a client meeting, or whatever it might have been on Zoom. But I hadn't then blocked away other things that are important that I get done. So after week 1, I've gone back to operating like I do at work. Use my diary, set aside the time frames. So all of those sorts of things I've now got a little bit of traction on. I've still got a long way to go. But the other thing that I found really challenging is not knowing when to stop working of a day. So I've been getting in trouble from my husband, Craig. because he starts cooking dinner and I just keep working, and before we know it, it's 8, 9 o'clock. So this week I'm making a commitment to stop at a reasonable hour, get out, have a walk, get dinner, because otherwise I feel like this is probably going to be more of a marathon than a sprint. This whole thing. So I feel like it's important to try and keep that energy up. And I could, working 12-hour days is certainly not going to do that. So it's like, because I'm at home, I think, oh, that's okay. I'm already here. I don't need to travel a half an hour from work to home. But reality is it still will take its toll if we keep doing it over a period of time.
Having that new, because it's a new way of living, like we've got to create that new, and it's been about planners, but that the whole dream week of you like locking in, where are you at and how do you do that is a really important piece. Like I went for a walk this morning with the dog that I found someone else's dog. I've had to
Right.
and
We're all doing something for someone, Gracie.
But it's like I don't have one here, and so I've it actually gets me out because the owner can't get out, and so it actually, for both of us, the dog and myself, it's our little. You've got to find that space. You've got to find that thing that helps you get out, and so to me, it's like, well, I've got to walk for the dog because he sits at home all day, and so it's kind of good. It's this purpose, another bit of purpose.
That's it.
Yeah.
And talking, actually, you've just made me think of something about the whole working from home thing. As you know, it's been a common theme for businesses to show more flexibility, for people to work from home. And this is before COVID. But reality is a lot of businesses didn't support it or couldn't see that they could trust that the person would still get the same degree of output and all of that. To me, that's probably going to be another silver lining out of this whole COVID-19 thing, that businesses will see what is possible for people to do some work from home. Now, obviously, this is pretty extreme that it's happening 100% of the time or close to, but hopefully the silver lining will be that employees will have some more flexibility than what a lot of businesses have been able to support until now.
Yeah, no, it's really, and that's been one of the big things, is people reconnecting at home, but even that can be confronting as well. So like having to be here with my parents, it can be confronting. There's stuff going on, and I'm like, I don't necessarily, but you kind of then you've got to find the blessings. You've got to find the beauty in whatever it is, in whatever scenario. Because I think that's the other thing, is you're being pushed into this place that you might, that you've kind of avoided or you've not wanted to be in, and so from a personal perspective, that's not work, or because work can overtake your life. As you said with before, it's like it can overtake your life, and so it's like, well, how do we
Yeah, it's interesting, Grace. I'd say the biggest reflection that I've had personally is how much I've allowed many things to actually control my life instead of me controlling it. So yes, I am very social. I love saying yes to most things. I find it really hard to say no. But what that has meant is me running rampant and actually very rarely having time at home. And we have a few friends that joke how we may as well get the electricity disconnected. But this has been very nurturing for me to actually have time at home. So I'm not bored by any means at the moment, because I feel like I'm still feeding my soul that this is actually how you maybe somewhat meant to live, not getting pulled from pillar to post. Craig and I were only talking this morning that we must actually run on adrenaline because a lot of the time, because we actually have been having 10-hour sleep, 10 hours of a night sleep, 7 days a week the last few weeks. So we're like, wow, how do we actually normally survive on running here and running there and doing this and doing that? So,
yeah, it's really interesting. So you work with a lot of charities and you recruit for a lot of charities. How have you found what's going on, and what kind of advice would you have for charities?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I must say that off the back of the bushfires in January, I'd already started being really consciously thinking about what that was going to mean for many other charities this year, as I'm sure you were as well, Grace. And unfortunately, that this whole COVID-19 thing has now taken that to a whole nother level. Um, what I found probably a little bit off-putting, if I could say it like that, was a couple of weeks ago, some charities were just continuing to badger with emails for donations, text messages for donations, phone calls for donations. And I found it a bit not all that pleasant. I just thought, guys, I think you really need to think about this. Because if I was to draw some comparisons to the recruitment industry, it would be like me just going, hey, Mr. Client, I want more jobs. Hey, Mr. Client, here's 5 marketing people that clearly they're not going to need or want right at the moment in the height of COVID-19. So it would have been more bad taste for us to be going down that path. What it has meant is us having more one-on-one meaningful conversations with clients about what's happening in their business, what are they noticing, what might they need us to support them with. Might only be lots of little pieces of a pie, but I guess if I then drew the comparison to charities and not-for-profit organisations, is thinking about who are your donors, who are your sponsors, what might be happening in their businesses, and maybe just showing a bit more of that one-on-one interaction at the moment, rather than this blanket, I want. The other thing I'd also say about using your time wisely right now, all of those things that throughout the normal life of business where you go, I wish that document was better, and I wished we had an event plan as a template, and I wish we had this, and I wish we had that. Write out that wish list, plan it in your diary as to when you want to actually achieve those things, and work against ticking them off. You might not have record revenue months or anything like that at the moment, because reality is a lot of us won't. But I think it's probably more about still feeling some self-accomplishment and things that will end up making a difference when the events are back on, when sponsorship's back on, and so on.
And I think that's a really good point, Ali. So I just want to point out to those that are listening is that Ali does a lot of work in charities and works with a lot of, has done a lot of work in on boards for charities. So it's not coming from a recruitment place. It's actually coming from someone that actually does a lot of work in the charity space and raises funds. And I think I've had a conversation on multiple fronts about we kind of got a bit lost, I think, in the fundraising, in the sense of, I know as a fundraiser for 10 years, it was like, okay, you made that budget and you kicked it and something really great came in, and then do that and then do 10%. And I'm like, but what for? So we kind of got a bit lost in how we were doing this. And I think this is a really good recalibration of, why are we raising money? What's the purpose of it? We need it for this person, to get the outcome. We need it to save someone from cancer, or we need it to, put people in camps for, young people and all that sort of stuff. But I think we kind of got a bit lost in, it became about fundraising, and fundraising became about money, and then it became about a budget, not about the people that we were serving.
Yes.
I think this really is a great time to reconfigure and work out, well, why are we fundraising? What is the need in there? And because we've been brought to our knees, as everyone has, we then get to go, okay, yeah, this is the need that we can fulfill and we can be part of right at this point, and then work out how to then ongoing.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on, Grace. And thinking about, you mentioned, what is the purpose of the organisation, and what have been the great examples of that? So where have we truly lived by our purpose? Within the charitable organisation. What was the signs of that? So what are the stories, I guess? And is it time to actually gather some more of those good news stories so we can remain really focused on that is why we do what we do? Because otherwise, reality is when we're busy, we do often just recycle a lot of the same material or the same event plan or the same event full stop. So, taking some time to think more laterally, but keeping the purpose of the organisation in mind instead of trying to be everything to everyone.
And I think that concept of going back and nurturing new people, because we don't do that very well either.
Yes.
So having a care, that's one of the things that I always ask different organisations is, what's your care plan for your donors?
Yeah.
How are you doing them? How are you supporting them? What are you doing? And some of the greatest things that ever happened was just because you sent a card or, so it's a really important part that I think we can really kind of focus in on, which is good.
Yeah.
Lastly, what have you found are the blessings that have come from this? You've talked about a few.
Yeah, look, I would probably just reaffirm many of what I've said. And as a snapshot, I think the fact that people have shown more vulnerability, so they're willing to reach out and share their experiences, and we can learn from each other more when we're all willing to do that. Definitely being more in control of my life myself, as opposed to being the yes person to everything and everyone, and therefore running ragged. And just really checking in with people one-on-one. So whether that be personally, business clients, our temporaries, our temp employees, people, just very much the checking in one by one and having really meaningful conversations and taking the time to do those. Of actually listening to what the person is saying. To me, it's been more quality over quantity at the moment, and I think that's a really nice break from what had probably become the normality of the flip side.
Well, thank you so much. It was so lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Grace. And look, I understand a lot of your listeners are from, charities and not-for-profit organisations and whatnot. But, I see more and more that we all have so many transferables and, we link in many, many ways. So hopefully, people can see that we can actually all learn very well from each other.
Awesome. Thank you. This is Connecting Communities. I will put Ali's details for People Fusion on the links below. If you have any questions, just ask down below. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thanks, Grace. Thanks. Bye.